So currently Manchester United struggle to play through pressure from the build-up phase in the defensive third, which has now seen Amorim resort to going long directly from the keeper. But even when we do manage to establish settled possession after winning a second or a loose ball in the middle third, we arguably struggle just as much when it comes to breaking down horizontally and vertically compact defensive shapes, with games against Fulham, Arsenal and Tottenham in the Europa League last season all being examples. And so my thesis in this video that I'm going to prove is that Amorim should take inspiration from Andoni Iraola's ball progression strategy, which I analysed in my video earlier on this week, looking at how Iraola would set up Manchester United. So I'll leave that linked in all the usual places in case you do want further details. But not only can Amorim use direct verticality from the build-up phase in order to allow United to progress the ball up the pitch with greater effectiveness, but considering we also struggle to create high-value chances frequently in the final third, I think we should also utilise Iraola's concept of double width on the flanks. Maybe not consistently throughout a game every single time we attack, but certainly doing so with at least some significant frequency throughout a game, as by doubling up on the flanks and utilising overlapping runs, United can then get into crossing positions more often, wherefrom if we can set up optimal crossing angles regularly, not only could we provide greater service to take advantage of Sesko's dominant aerial ability inside the opposition's box, but United could also take advantage of the aerial ability of the centre-backs, not just during set pieces, but also during open play. And my logic is that if you look back at Amorim's tenure, we seem to create a majority or at least a significant minority of our highest value chances and also goals from set pieces, usually via the centre-backs Euro, De Ligt and Maguire when he plays. And so rather than waiting for a corner or a wide free kick, to utilise the centre-backs as well as Sesko's dominant offensive aerial ability, why not try to increase the frequency at which the centre-backs get into the box alongside Sesko, and then also increase the volume of quality crosses that we can put into the box. But of course this is easier said than done, and so in this video I'm going to analyse how Rúben Amorim could set up these patterns of play, firstly using direct vertical passes from deep, and then the concept of double width in order to work optimal crossing angles, which can be further enhanced by throwing one or even two of the back three, or even maybe Casemiro from midfield forward into the opposition's box. But before I break down how I will go about doing this, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including the Manchester United shirts from this season. They sent me over this Bruno Fernandes home shirt, as well as this 06-07 Manchester United white away shirt with Ronaldo number 7 on the back, alongside the Zinedine Zidane Juventus shirt from the 1990s as well. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comments section below. So before I get into the use of double width on the flanks, pushing the centre-backs forward into the box, and setting up the optimal crossing angle, let's first talk about how we can use direct verticality to progress the ball up the pitch into the opposition's half in the first place. So when the goalkeeper has the ball, either from a goal kick or from open play, squeeze the back line and midfield double pivot high up the pitch in order to optimise our ability of winning the initial header, but also any second or loose balls as well. And you can also enhance your ability to win that first ball by pushing maybe 2 or 3 of your main aerial targets, let's say Sesko, Euro, Casemiro or De Ligt, into optimal areas, all in close proximity against the opposition's weakest aerial players, and crucially as far away from the opposition's centre-backs as you can, or any other dominant aerial players that they have. Whilst the players who aren't your main aerial targets, maybe Agate, Mainu, sometimes Casemiro, Dorgu or Dalot at left back, maybe also Mazraoui, or even Mason Mount temporarily, can drop back and fill into the back line, providing the security behind De Ligt and Euro to allow them to then push further forward and basically play as wide target men alongside Sesko. And the majority of the time, the optimal area to position these players is going to be out wide against the smaller and less physical fullbacks or wing backs. But the comparative height and physicality difference isn't the sole advantage of this. I mean, just think about it from first principles. Is it easier for players to win headers if they're having to head the ball with their back to goal when the ball is coming directly at them from a 180-degree angle with the pressure of a centre-back on their back as well? Or alternatively, when they're able to start wide and attack the ball from more of a 90 to maybe 150-degree angle with the momentum of their run and jump taking them forward? Well, just logically, it's going to be the latter, as this angle is going to enable them to get a higher jump on their likely static opponent, which is then optimising the height and physicality advantage of your most dominant aerial players. And because of the angle at which they are attacking the ball, when they do manage to win the header, rather than flicking it on into a wider position or blindly knocking it on ahead, hoping for a runner beyond them to get onto it, now they are almost facing goal. When their head connects with the ball, you can then do what we see from Iraola's Bournemouth, which is to position your best ball winners, particularly when it comes to winning second balls and loose balls, higher up the pitch, such as Casemiro or Agate if they're playing, but also players like Dorgu, Mount, Bruno Fernandes can all be positioned around where the loose ball is likely to fall. You then go long directly from the goalkeeper with the intention of either winning the first ball with a header, knocking the ball on into the final third for runners ahead of play, such as Dorgu and Bumo or Mount, whoever it is depending on the area that United are targeting, as well as with the aim of winning the loose ball around the area just in front. Looking to win possession and then consolidate settled possession in the middle third via passes backwards to deeper players before then transitioning back into that familiar 3-4-2-1 possession shape, with De Ligt and Euro at this point recovering their deeper positions in the back three. Now from here you obviously still want to try to play through the centre where possible, but if play goes on and we're continuously circulating possession and struggling to work the ball between the lines, then this is where we can use a combination of player rotations as well as the tactic of dragging the opposition defensive shape over to one side to then exploit the space on the other, utilising Iraola's concept of double width in order to then set up a high quality crossing opportunity. Now as we saw with Inzaghi's Inter Milan, if you're able to sustain periods of possession, just like with Mkhitaryan, Çalhanoğlu and Barella, United could rotate the midfield double pivot and even one of the interior forwards into the 3-1 or maybe a 3-2 rest defence, with that being the likes of Casemiro, Mount, Agate, Mainu or Bruno, depending on who is on the pitch at the time, with Euro from right-sided centre-back then looking to make a vertical forward run in order to take up a higher position in behind the opposition's midfield line, which can then be the signal for one of your other main aerial targets such as De Ligt or Casemiro to move off of the blind side of their designated presser to also make a vertical run beyond the midfield line. See, my logic is that throwing one of Euro, Casemiro or De Ligt forward into the box from crossing situations significantly improves your offensive aerial threat. But by throwing two of those deeper players forward alongside Sesko already is going to cause the opposition huge problems, likely resulting in at least one aerial mismatch or even a free man, particularly if the opposition don't have aerially dominant central midfielders or fullbacks. Now when it comes to how you look to set up the crossing opportunity, it's obviously going to depend on the situation and the game state. But before I break down a general example, if you are interested in circle charts or plot graphs, as well as just looking at some tactically annotated video footage from some different teams, not just Manchester United, then you can go and check out my Patreon. You can get a 7-day free trial, so I'll leave that linked in the description below, the eye above, and on the end screen after the video. So let's just walk through one example. Let's say we're struggling to break down Brentford or Sunderland in upcoming games, and we're midway through the first half or even the second half or towards the end of the game. Well, for maybe one attack out of every 3 or 4, we can simply instruct the interior forward on whichever side we want to target to hold a wide position on the outside of the fullback, whilst the wing-back behind starts slightly deeper on the flank but maybe also slightly narrower as well, just in case of a turnover but also for the benefit of passing angles, just so we don't have two players in the same vertical line. We can then focus ball progression down the opposite side for a period, circulating the ball from that side back to the middle, but then rather than circulating the ball to the other side, we can then continue to focus the ball progression down that original side, in order to entice the opposition's defensive shape further over to the opposite side where we're then going to try to exploit the double width. Now obviously we're not just going to be circulating the ball for the sake of it, we're still going to be trying to find openings where possible on that side, but our primary objective is going to be to set up the opposition to vacate as much space as possible on the far side to then get Bruno, Mount, Casemiro or one of our most effective long passers to then receive the ball from deep from the flank, then get the ball out of their feet and look to exploit the double width on the far side with a long switch of play either into the interior forward or the wing back on the flank. Because the opposition's wide midfielder is highly unlikely to hold a wide position out of possession when the ball is on the opposite side, being instructed to shift narrow into a central position in order to maintain the horizontal compactness of the defensive shape. And so therefore, if the long pass is hit with speed and accurate and either the wing back or interior forward can receive the ball and get it under control, maybe 10 to 20 yards deeper than the opposition's fullback, then because there's a 2v1 you can essentially pin the opposition's fullback deeper, creating the space for one of those players to get the ball under control and drive forward immediately, looking to take advantage of the 2v1 overload before the opposition's left-sided midfielder can get back across. Now from here you then want to have the wing back and the interior forward working in tandem, using coordinated movements in order to create an overlapping opportunity, where one of them can feed the other down the outside of the fullback, but rather than putting in a cross immediately, you then want them to hold up the ball, go backwards, slowing up the attack to then allow your main aerial threats such as De Ligt, Euro or even Casemiro as well, to get in position to join Sesko with other players replacing them in the rest defence in case of a turnover and a counter-attack, before you can then look to set up the optimal crossing angle. But what exactly is the optimal crossing angle? Well, I would say that it's most often going to be in line or maybe 5 yards wide of the penalty box horizontally and maybe 5 to 10 yards further out vertically. For an in-swinging cross, Bruno, Mount or Dalot from the left and Bumo or Ahmad from the right, and you probably want the crossing position slightly deeper and narrower. However, with out-swinging crosses such as Luke Shaw from left-sided centre-back, Dolgu from left wing back, even though he does need to work on his crossing as I've said before, or even one of them Bumo or Ahmad from the left side as well as the other 3 right footers from the right side, you want the cross coming from an area that is slightly wider and higher. But alongside the crossing angle you also want to optimise the starting positions and the movement of Sesko and the 2 other aerial targets, say Casemiro, De Ligt, Euro or even Maguire if he's on the pitch, which is usually going to be towards the back post, around the area in line with or maybe 5 yards behind the far back post, in close proximity to the fullback on the far side of the ball, as you want your aerial targets to be positioned away from the centre in order to make it harder for the centre backs to get tight to them, but also to give them the momentum advantage with a longer run up when contesting aerial duels against the opposition's static defenders. Now of your 3 main aerial targets, you want one of them to make a diagonal run between the centre backs across goal in the direction of the near post, looking to get a flick on in order to help it towards goal, whilst another one holds a position on the blind side of the fullback on the far side, targeting the back post, with the other one making a run in front of the fullback between him and the centre back, making sure that you've got one of your main aerial targets in each of those 3 key areas inside of the box, with another player making a run towards a penalty spot and others holding positions on the edge of the box as well in case of a shooting opportunity or if the ball gets headed out and needs to be recycled. Now these crossing situations don't really need to be anything overly choreographed, as simply by utilising this switch of play, setting up the crossing angle and getting your aerial targets in these optimal starting positions to make these specific runs frequently enough throughout a game, with the aerial quality that we have in players like Sesko, Casemiro, Euro and De Ligt, is surely going to lead to us creating at least 2 or 3 more high value chances throughout a game, which given the goals that we've scored from set pieces could be enough to turn losses into draws and draws into wins, whilst also specifically providing Sesko with a greater volume of high value chances throughout the course of individual matches and the season as a whole. So let me know what you thought of my analysis in the comment section below, and if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave a link in the description below, and if you do want to sign up to my Patreon, you can get a 7-day free trial. I'll leave that on the end screen now in case you do want to sign up and check out the circle charts and the plot graphs.